the teen sensation, Tony Hawk. His big idea, do what you love, no matter what. Tony Hawk began riding a skateboard when he was 9 years old. 5 years later, he did something no one ever heard of. He became a professional skateboarder. He had the sponsorships, he had the fans, and when he turned 16, he was the best skateboarder in the whole wide world, pulling off daredevil tricks no one ever even dreamed of. The bucks. When Tony was still a teenager, he was touring the world, making 6 figures a year. But the big money was still to come. He worked his extreme style into an action-packed line of video games. The adrenaline kept pumping through clothing lines, endorsement deals. Add it all up, and it comes to millions a year and makes Tony Hawk one of the most successful CEO athletes in the world.
Professional skateboarder, Tony Hawk. Welcome to The Big Idea.
All right, thank you.
Calling you a professional skateboarder, that doesn't seem to do it justice. I would say manager of a multi-billion-dollar brand, ambassador of the youth. I mean, you're way past a skateboarder at this point.
You know, that's the one title I'm most proud of, though. That's really what I put on. That's what I put on customs forms these days.
Skateboarder. I love that.
Exactly.
I love that. This is all show about young and rich, and I guess that's the fantasy set of words. And we couldn't think of a better guest than you because, I mean, basically, at 12, you start making dough.
Well, yeah, but it was very minimal. I mean, I started making, I started making a little bit of money in high school, but I mean, it was literally like, go to a competition and you win $150 for first prize, right? And then I was getting royalty checks for skateboards with my name on it for $5, $10.
But in the next 5 years, it obviously picked up because by the time you were 17 or 18, you bought your first house. Most 17-year-old and 18-year-olds not buying houses.
Yes, yes.
So something kicked in the teens.
And around my later years of high school, things started getting much better. My parents had to co-sign for the house, but I was living in it before I graduated, which was a challenge, you know, to try to stay focused on your schoolwork.
Well, I want to talk about that. Let's go back a little bit. How you, as a kid, you were kind of a skinny kid, very kind of precocious, and as your mother said it best, challenging.
Yeah, I was full of energy for sure. And, you know, I wanted to do all these things. I wanted to do sports. I played basketball. I played baseball. But I never felt like I was getting that much better at any of them. And I didn't like the fact that the team was relying on me for their success or the vice versa. And when I found skateboarding, I found something that was active, that I could pose my own challenges, and that was at my own pace, you know, and no one was relying on me.
Did something, I think you handed your first skateboard when you were 8, did something kind of magical happen at that moment? You put this board and you go, okay, this is the marriage. This is it. Was there?
No, it wasn't.
It
wasn't that quick. No, it wasn't. There wasn't some revelation or anything. You know, basically, my brother gave me his old board. I started riding down the driveway, and I remember yelling back at him, "How do I turn?" And then I just basically ran into the wall and picked the thing up, turned it around, and went back. And so I would get it out every once in a while. And my friends in my neighborhood were skating, and then I think it was once I got to the skate park, and I fell into that mode of, oh, there are, you know, you can skate these bowls, you can skate these transitions, and when I saw a picture of a guy doing an aerial out of a pool, an empty swimming pool, that's when I said, I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that.
Do you remember, I remember growing up in the advertising business, and I was building for years, and there was a certain moment I remember going, wow, I kind of really get this. You know, I think I could be the man at this. Do you remember an aha moment for you? You're doing this, you go, you know, I might just be better than everybody at this thing.
Yeah, not really so much. I think that maybe when I first turned professional, I placed 4th in my first pro event, and I already reached the top of the amateur ranks, but there wasn't, you know, it wasn't like there was a lot of people gunning for that title.
Yeah. You and 7 guys named Larry.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay, right.
And so when I turned pro, I ended up beating a guy that was sort of a scary, intimidating figure in the skate world, and he had actually spit on me at one point. Because he was, you know, he was this punker guy, and I was this little scrawny kid, and I beat him, and I thought, wow, you know, people actually recognize my talents and think that this means something, and it wasn't I was choosing a career. I was 14 years old, but at the same time, I was thinking, wow, you know, maybe I can keep going here. I can move up the ranks even more.
So you start making money. You start basically, you become, you know, the face of a sport. We'll get to that later. But I want to hear at 18, 17, you're buying a house. You're obviously making hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. How do you keep your head on straight?
It was hard. My parents helped me a lot. You know, they were always supportive of skating.
So they were never like, you should study to be an accountant so you can go back on that. They were kind of behind this the whole way?
They were behind it for sure. When I graduated high school and chose not to go to college, that was a little difficult for my parents because all of their other children, I have 2 sisters and a brother, had went to college. And so they felt like, well, you know, this thing may not pan out. You might want to have a backup career of something to go to college for. But at the same time, having just gotten out of high school and being able to tour the world nonstop, that's a huge opportunity, and making money along the way. You know, they were supportive, and I was lucky because none of my other friends that skated had parents that wanted them skating.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's not most parents to say, "Gee, I hope little Johnny grows up to be a skater." I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Well,
it's funny though because nowadays there are parents that are want to live vicariously through their kids and have them become pro skaters.
There are very few industries or sports, particularly I can think of. I mean, there's Tiger Woods and golf. There's Lance Armstrong in cycling, and there's Tony Hawk in skateboarding. I can't think of any other. Obviously, Jordan was the best at basketball, but literally are the face or the embodiment of an entire sport/industry. That's kind of a special place to be.
It's strange though. It's a lot of pressure, especially because skateboarding is so eclectic. You know, I really am one type of skateboard. I represent one style of skating, and for me to represent all of it is kind of, it's like saying you represent an art form.
Yeah.
So that's hard, but you know, I'm happy that people recognize what I do. But above anything else, I really want to be recognized as a good skater.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to be recognized as the best marketer.
Well, you stick to your core competency. I mean, it's like in anything in business, stick to your core competency, and that's what you do. Today, you're selling. It's just staggering. Your games have sold $1 billion, but I want to still stay backwards a little bit. The show tonight is about young and rich, and obviously that's the American fantasy. Everybody, all the fantasies on TV today, all the young icons, the Paris Hiltons of the world. I mean, that's a whole other story. Is young and rich. People want it the easy way. Obviously, you work very hard for it. What's the downside of that? I mean, young and rich. Obviously, it is great, but give me. You're 21 now, 22. You're managing an empire. You're part of an empire. I know you brought your family close in. Your sister's a CEO. What's the kind of the potholes there?
Well, there's a sense of invincibility that's hard to shake. You know what I mean? If you're making a lot of money and you're in your early 20s, you never see an end in sight. And I think I was lucky in that I went through some tough times. In my sort of mid to late 20s through skating. Skating died in popularity.
All of a sudden, you woke up and. Hey, wait a second.
Yeah, and literally taking out a second mortgage on my house, trying to start a new company, and it was hard. I mean, it was hard, but I never gave up skating, and so I was doing everything I could to still be a pro skater. Even in that day, in that time frame, you tell people you're a pro skater, and they didn't think that was even a real career.
An opportunity, an option.
So I was happy that I still got to do it, and I was working as hard as ever. And so when things came back around, I was in the right place at the right time, so to speak, because all of a sudden I still had all my skills. I was still skating better than ever, and still a recognizable name from my previous career, so to speak. So things were really good once it came back in popularity. But I just did what I had to do. That's really what it was about.
You young guy, tons of money, notoriety there. How do you sift through the bad offers, the hangers-on, what to do with your money? I mean, we only see the positive side of young and rich, and there's no playbook for this. You're obviously a guy who's got your head on straight, and it's the first time we're meeting, but I assume you seem like the kind of kid that always had your head on straight. But how do you handle all that?
It's more about intuition. Does this feel right? Does it feel like it will represent skating well? Because I always felt skating was so sacred to me, and people who did it, especially in the days when it wasn't cool. And it was just it was what we had to do because we felt we had this link to it. We all felt like it was bringing us together. And so when I started getting offers like that, it was hard to sort through. But at the same time, it just was about, did it feel right? Right.
Great lesson. Just always follow your gut, man. I say that to everybody all the time. You ever scared out there? I mean, some of this stuff is just insane. Are you ever kind of like at the top of something or about to do something and you go, geez, I could break my neck here.
Yeah, for sure, but that is, that's the best gauge of should you be doing it or not. It's more about, for me, it's about approaching things with confidence. If I'm going to set out to do something, I've already convinced myself that I can do it, that it is possible. if I go at it and I think, I don't know if this is going to work, that's when I get hurt.
That's when you get hurt.
You know what I mean? It's, you can't just throw caution in the wind and go, oh, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially at my age and having this much experience and having so many injuries along the way, I'm way more methodical about learning things. You know what I mean? It takes me way more tries, and I have to know that it's going to work before I go out and try to make it.
It's called age, my friend.
It's wisdom.
Wisdom,
Yeah.
which comes with age.
Experience.